A former marshal is speaking out exclusively to us with allegations. Convicted child rapist and polygamist preacher Warren Jeffs is exerting control not just over his congregation, but local government from prison. Watch what happens when my Nightline co-anchor Dan Harris confronts town officials.
He turned around as soon as we did, and now he's right on my tail.
We are being followed by what we believe to be members of the official security team for an outlaw religion.
Right on my tail.
They don't like outsiders in this isolated desert community, the epicenter of the FLDS, a Mormon splinter group.
Can we just ask you a quick question?
That still practices polygamy. Here, women wear prairie dresses.
Can I just ask you a quick question? Okay.
Thousands of FLDS members live here in two small towns straddling the border of Utah and Arizona.
Are you Warren Jeffs?
Yes. Even though their prophet, Warren Jeffs, is doing life in prison for marrying and raping two underage girls, he still allegedly controls every aspect of life here.
Obey the prophet when he speaks, and you'll be blessed. Disobey him, it is death.
Now, however, a small but growing independence movement. A new public school, a subway, and the emergence of this man, who used to be the top lawman here. His name is Helaman Barlow, and he was once the clean-cut chief marshal in the joint force that patrols these twin towns, a position that placed him in close proximity to the prophet.
Under Warren Jeffs, were you asked to do things that you regret doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Barlow has broken from the faith and is now divulging what he says are church secrets to federal investigators who are suing the local governments, accusing them of being controlled by the church, a charge local officials deny.
Do the police here protect and serve the people or protect and serve the church primarily?
My job was to protect the church.
Protect the church?
Yes.
What you're describing is a straight-up theocracy.
Yes, absolutely. This community's always been a theocracy.
It took some convincing, but he finally agreed to do this, his first television interview, surrounded by his friends and his wife Enid, all former church members. In a deposition with federal investigators, Barlow says local law enforcement knew about widespread underage marriages and did nothing to stop it, and that he was asked by a city official to alter police reports. Barlow also said that when Warren Jeffs was on the run and listed as one of America's most wanted, and then made them available to Warren Jeffs.
I knew it was wrong, but it was a way for me to keep my value up.
Did you live in fear that the prophet could actually take your family away from you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
With one phone call.
Yep.
And he could call me and say, okay, you're out, and I could say, no, I'm not going. He'd call her.
Would you have left him?
If you leave, stay with your husband. If you keep your children with you, then you have spiritually killed, spiritually murdered your children.
Then we saw this sign.
Town meeting, executive session, 6:30.
A town council meeting on this very night, where members of the public would be given 3 minutes to make comments.
Good evening. My name is Dan Harris. I'm from ABC News.
When we showed up, it was pretty quickly clear that local officials really did not want to respond to charges that they are controlled by the church.
The federal government has sued you, saying that you're essentially a wing of the FLDS church. How do you respond to that?
Do you have our attorney's phone number?
It's a pretty serious charge. I would think that you would want to answer it yourselves. They're saying that you, as an elected body here in the United States of America, are effectively the wing of a church, one whose prophet is in prison for 2 counts of sexual assault of a child. You wouldn't want to respond to that? I would imagine you would want to speak for yourselves. Is anybody here not a member of the FLDS? You're just going to wait out the 3 minutes?
Thank you.
The next night, at a council meeting in the next town over, we actually got a response.
I personally deny that. I would hope that you give us the respect of allowing each person in this room their personal beliefs.
There's been allegations from several levels of government that the marshal's office, the police force here, is essentially the armed wing, the security wing of the FLDS. Do you take a view on that?
I deny it in full.
You deny it in full.
Your 3 minutes is up.
We called an attorney who represents one of these towns, who also denied that officials are controlled by the church. And with regards to the former chief, Helaman Barlow, he said, quote, "We question his credibility since he has repeatedly lied under oath."
You better go talk to the judge about it.
Barlow admits he has perjured himself while defending the church in the past, but he insists that what he's saying now is true. Today, when discussing his decision to leave the church, he and his wife say it was not only because of the things that he says he felt forced to do as chief, but it was also because of the increasingly arbitrary and strange rules being imposed on all members by the prophet Warren Jeffs. What were the kind of rules he would hand down?
Well, first it was eat very little meat. And then they said, use beans for protein. The next week, beans are forbidden.
As we mentioned, there are signs of hope emerging in this community. That new public school, something Jeffs had once banned. Hundreds of children of former members are now getting a proper education.
Oh, give me a $100,000 bid. Do I hear 100,000?
We also went to this auction where property once controlled by the church is now being sold off to anyone who wants to buy it. Warren Jeffs' former bodyguard has purchased a compound that was built for the prophet and turned it into the America's Most Wanted bed and breakfast, which he is more than happy to show off.
These are typical rooms here and very comfortable.
Even though this community is slowly changing, it's still very tense and very divided.
Could I get your name?
For example, listen to what this woman, one of the few FLDS members who actually agreed to speak with us, had to say about Warren Jeffs. She believes the admitted pedophile is the victim of prejudice.
Is that the view of what's happening with the prophet, that it's persecution?
In my opinion, yes.
Do people feel like he'll come back?
I do.
You do?
She is apparently not alone. During our interview with Helaman Barlow, members of church security, also known as the God Squad, repeatedly drove past us.
Why do people here still believe in a prophet who has been convicted for molesting children?
They're forbidden to read newspapers. They don't listen to radio often, no TV, and the only information they get is what they're given over the pulpit.
So where is all of this heading? Helaman Barlow says he swings between optimism that this community will slowly join mainstream America and dark pessimism about worst-case scenarios.
Do you think it has the potential to get ugly here before it gets better?
I do. I do very much so.
Well, what kind of violent?
When people realize, hey, this is broken, we got tricked. These people caused me to do this much harm to my own family. I think you cannot underestimate the kind of emotions and anger and violence that is possible in that scenario.
For Nightline, this is Dan Harris on the Utah-Arizona border.